Hello, everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. Welcome back to another episode of 3 Points Perspective. And my goodness, in the past 24 hours, 48 hours, a lot of things have happened at Chelsea. Not in terms of, there's not a lot to talk about, but what there is to talk about, there's a lot of juice in there. There is some serious stuff. We've got the CTS, the Chelsea Supporters Trust, sending messages with Bowley and Egbali directly being called out, essentially. Gallagher contract calls seem to be at a massive standstill. So I know Pochettino's not going to be happy about that. And then also a lot of injury issues that should be hopefully concluded by the end of the international break. But again, not many updates from the club. So it's hard to give an exact time frame on some players because, again, communication is almost zilch from Chelsea from what we've seen so far. But I'm here with Charlie. I'm here with Nina as well. Guys, always a pleasure to have you both on. Let's just get straight into it. Nina, first of all, what are your thoughts on Chelsea at the moment? Obviously, we've come out of the Leicester result. We've still got ages until the Burnley game. How do you feel going into this international break and things at the moment?
Yeah, the past few results have been quite high scoring, which is unusual. And I kind of looked back to last season when a lot of the games that, we did lose, but, would be sort of 1-0, 2-0, maybe 1-alls here and there, but they were never really extensive scorelines. And I feel like that's kind of a change from last season. So, upon reflection, I'd say the games are more entertaining, whether it's for the, for the good of Chelsea or not. I'd say our games are much more different to last season. But then when you look at the bigger picture and, you see how we've been doing in the Premier League, it's hard to, be positive about Chelsea's end to the season in particular. And I think we kind of, all we have left really is maybe this FA Cup. And you look at how close we've come, to the Carabao Cup and how close we could come to the FA Cup. But, if we don't potentially win this and, we continue to be where we are in the league, then you are talking about, another pretty dull season as a whole. So it's almost like it could go either way, but you're not too sure, because that's the thing with Chelsea. You're never too sure what to expect. Very unpredictable. You don't know what you're getting until the actual game. And the fact that, we have been struggling, whether it be, Premier League opposition for sure, but we have also struggled against Championship opposition. So you're not just too sure really what to expect with Chelsea. And I suppose that's a problem. But yeah, I guess it's good to get a little bit of a break, give some time for a few injuries to come back. But, I worry maybe we do lose a bit of our form, but, we've got Burnley after the break. So that is an opportunity for 3 points in the Premier League, hopefully. But yeah, it's hard to really predict what Chelsea season is going to look like at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose as well, it's just, there's still so much uncertainty. I feel like at this point in the season, you would have more clarity about where we're going. And this comes back to what we're going to be speaking about with the owners and the supporters trust and why there's been a communication in that sense, which, by the way, wasn't even that recent. That was sent at the beginning of March, but it only became public on the 20th of March. So, within the past 24 hours. So, they've clearly tried to address this in private. And the only reason that I can think that it's become public so late on is, well, someone's leaked it, of course. But they're clearly not happy with the club, and rightly so, right? I don't know about you, Charlie. Me personally, I do believe in giving this whole process a bit more time, right? I still haven't concluded, right, this is what I think about the owners. I'll be totally honest. I think it's obvious that they want to make money out of this, but I struggle to see many owners that don't want to make money. I think we were just lucky with Abramovich. We arguably the best owner in world football, and we were so lucky to have someone like Abramovich who was willing to pump his own money into the club. And boy, how the tables have turned. Because we've gone from knowing, right, this is what we're going to get. This is what we're going to get from it. If a manager doesn't perform, he's getting sacked. If a player doesn't perform, he's not going to play. If he's not ready, we're not going to sign him in the first place. There's a few exceptions, but generally speaking, we have a policy and we sign ready-made players. And that means the squad is ready to win here and now. And now we've got players on 7-8 year contracts. Some of them don't even have experience in professional football, full stop. I mean, look at Cole Palmer. It's his first full season, in professional football. So, and he's our best player. So to think that he's the best player, that's what we've put our energy into. Players like that who haven't got any experience, man. I mean, what do you think about all this, mate?
Yeah, look, I think it's fair to say, like, in regards to the relationship between the club and the fans right now, it's probably the worst it's been. Certainly since, I imagine, the three of us have been following Chelsea. I mean, I don't know what it was like back in the sort of 70s, 80s or whatever. But yeah, it's not great. There is a massive disconnect between the club and the fans. There's a lot of things that, obviously those things are heightened because we're not doing as well on the pitch. Often you can maybe let those things slide, or you can, like, good results, maybe, those things don't get highlighted as much because ultimately everyone wants, the team to do well. And then other issues, if you're doing well, maybe take a little bit of a back seat. But yeah, look, there's a lot of problems at the club right now. There's a lot of things that, aren't being addressed. I think particularly amongst match-going fans, there's a real disconnect. There's a real distrust between fans and club. I don't think there's any trust in what's going on. I think a lot of people are losing faith in kind of what the club are trying to do. And look, when you're new ownership coming in, there needs to be a lot of public facing chatting. There needs to be a lot of communication that these are our plans. This is what we're looking to do. This is what we've set out. The reason why we're doing X, Y, Z is this. Like, I think fans can be a lot more even if they don't agree with something, they can be a lot more understanding if, like, there's a clear explanation as to why we're doing this. But, like, just doing stuff and then giving their explanation as to why you're doing it is not a good way to continue. I mean, the letter itself, I think there's some good points raised in it from the supporters trust about issues at the club right now. Season ticket prices going up. We know there's going to be an increase before COVID, but that didn't happen. We know an increase is coming. Like, that's not the problem, but the reported increase is just ridiculous to whack that in one go, particularly, with cost of living in the UK and all that sort of stuff. You don't want to stop, like, the life and blood of the club. People that have been coming for years and years, suddenly, well, I can't go anymore because it's too expensive, can't afford it. Now, it's really important that you do keep the fans. I understand that revenue needs to increase, and how you do that, we haven't got a big stadium. That's the reality. We're missing out on so much revenue compared to our competitors because our stadium is 20, 30,000 seats smaller than teams we're competing with, which is a problem. So I get it that food prices are going to go up. I get it that tickets are going to increase. I get all those things. But you shouldn't be treating fans as customers. It's not I get it. It's a business, but the optics of what they're doing doesn't look very good. And the fact, the response from the club didn't address a single one of the issues raised just highlights the big problem in itself. And, they don't come out and communicate and come out and explain, what they're doing. It's going to get to a point where it could be a point of no return potentially, even already sort of a couple of years in, not even a couple of years in. So yeah, I would say it's a civil war between club and fans, but it certainly could be heading in that direction. And it's not even a difficult thing to address. You just need to come out. I don't think fans are asking for explanations of the ins and outs of finances and, like, we're doing this because this allows us to do X, Y, Z or whatever. I get it. They want to open up more revenue streams and stuff, but yeah, it was just a pathetic robotic response from the club, which didn't address anything. And that's not going to appease any supporters. If you come out and you just explain what you're doing, it's not hard to do. You just need to, be honest with the fans. And that's something that's been lacking pretty much from day one. look, to start with, there was a bit of communication, like, you know, right at the beginning, there was quite a lot going on, but that's just got less and less and less and less now. And yeah, I think the less there is, the longer they leave it, the absolutely the worse it's going to get.
Yeah. And we're going to move on to something else. Before we do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors. So, guys, if you haven't already heard of Match Bingo, you should have. We talk about it practically every video on the channel. Basically, it's bingo with a twist. Rather than playing with numbers, you play with in-game stats. So it could be corners, shots on goal, offside, things like that. Cross off your lines, and the more lines you cross off, the more money you can win. Guys, you've got to be over the age of 18 to play. Click the link in the description to download Match Bingo. It is capped, guys. So if you are worried about, you know, some people, they go on these apps and they spend God knows how much, you are actually restricted. Okay, so that's the nice thing about it. It's just a bit of fun. Play with your mates, and let us know if you win anything, because it's always nice. We sometimes give people a few shout outs, but we can't do anything unless we know you've done well. All right, so download the link, click the link in the description. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point you made, to be fair, Charlie. I suppose the question that I would then say, and I would put this in your direction, Nina, is I suppose if we were getting the results, I think the communication would still be okay. I almost think that because things have been so bad in that regard from where we were, right, a couple of years ago, if I was the owner, I wouldn't want to speak, because, you know, every time you come out publicly, you're putting yourself in the firing line, right? And it's almost like these guys are shielding themselves. They're like, well, if I don't speak, then, you know, I don't have to address these issues, and therefore I won't get the blame. But actually, you know, it's the opposite. You know, in terms of public criticism, fair enough. I don't think the Man United fans and the Liverpool fans and general worldwide football fans really care too much about what Chris Jurasek says, or Bowley or Egbali, you know, coming out and addressing the Chelsea fans. But to us, and there's a lot of us, there's millions of Chelsea fans out there, you know, it's nice to have an idea of what's actually going on.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I think as well, it's kind of like like what you say about not having clarity in terms of like the footballing side of things, because when they arrived, they said, this is going to be a project, right? You're going to have to trust the process here. It's going to be this case where we have to invest for the long term so that we can build a sustainable team that competes for many years moving forward, and particularly the Premier League, which is something that we haven't been for a good few years now. But I think where they went wrong is not actually specifying what that looks like in terms of how many years do we sacrifice of being in Europe. What do results of the Premier League look like? You know, what manager is going to be the right one to take us onto this process? And I feel like all these questions were kind of left unanswered. So now that we are sort of, because I guess I suppose they didn't really think that results would be as bad, but, you know, surely you did think that, you know, we wouldn't look as competitive in the Premier League if we have undergone so much change in such a short amount of time, maybe in a time where other Premier League clubs have just sort of been bringing in certain additions, strengthening their squads, which has been kind of in the works now for a few years. So technically we kind of were, you know, almost put at the start, like at the end of that race, perhaps, whatever that looks like. And then, you know, we never really received like a target, like what were we supposed to expect from last season, and perhaps what are we expecting from this season. You know, they never really specified these targets. And, you know, I know it's not as simple as that, as saying, oh, you know, this season we need to finish in the top 4, but I feel like because they've left it so ambiguous and sort of like go with the flow, that it's almost like they've expected that we can't turn around, point the finger and say, hang on a minute, but you've not delivered what you said you will, because I suppose they never really knew, you know, what they would be able to deliver for Chelsea in the present moment, because everything is on their behalf, future. But, you know, let's be real, it's not coming from a place that we're entitled Chelsea fan. It's coming from a place where we still have standards and we still have sort of expectations, you know, that we want to at least look competitive in the Premier League, you know, not be 11th and 12th for the majority of a whole season, particularly coming to a, a pivotal moment such as March, where things are now shaping up and you get an idea of sort of who's in and out of top 6, top 4. And it's just such a sort of unknown place to be. And now you look to next season and think, well, if we've not really got targets here, our managers just kind of, given the freedom, they're being told, this is a process, so kind of do what you will with the squad and take the time that you need. And, there's not really a target here. It's just going to be whenever we can look competitive or whenever we can be in Europe. And, I said that by signing all these young players and by, making such massive changes in such a short amount of time, you're kind of naturally sacrificing present day football. And that's why we are going to finish perhaps 11th again or 10th again. And then that is perhaps why we go on to playing another season out of Europe, because let's be real, we look so close, but it's equally as far if you take away, something like the FA Cup and you look just at the Premier League. So it's honestly quite sad that we just don't seem to have targets. Yes, the future, but what is this future? Is it in 10 years? Is it in 15? Is it in 5? Like, how much time out of Europe do we have to sacrifice? And it's not just about that, but how many results in the Premier League do we have to sacrifice? Or perhaps how many more lost cups maybe do we have to sacrifice? So I think it's those things that make Chelsea fans feel scared. So that's normal, that is normal. And you can't really blame the fans for feeling that way when things are so uncertain around what the club's expectations are. Because from here on, every Premier League has kind of got that target, isn't it? Where Arsenal are looking at, right, we're building on last year, we want to win the title this year. Man City are looking at it from the perspective of we want to retain it, we want to build on it. Man United are thinking, we've been winning one trophy in the last 6 years, we want to, go for another. And I feel like every club has that target, whereas at Chelsea it's kind of like go with what you can or what you will. And I feel like that's just not really a top club mentality, both on the footballing side of things and both on the ownership side of things.
I think a lot of the problems stem from the fact that too many fans have got unrealistic expectations. They're like refusing to realise that this is not the Chelsea of old. They can't move on from the fact that
but it's not really about that, though. It's still
it is about that, because people building up unrealistic expectations, right? Thinking that Chelsea are what they used to be, and then they're basing their expectations of this current situation and current team, which is completely different, and they're using the past as the barometer, and they're trying to set their expectations based on what we've achieved previously with a team that is nowhere near ready to do that. So people are getting frustrated that we're not hitting what we used to hit, but how can we do that when everything's completely different? So the fact that people can't seem to move on from the past, I'm not sitting there and saying what's going on is acceptable, but it's not helpful when the majority of when a lot of fans can't differentiate that Chelsea is different now. It's different. It is a project. It is a long-term process. I'm not saying that means that it's acceptable.
No, like that's it. Just defined.
No, I get that, and I've said before that I think the club have focused way too much on the future and they've neglected the present. Absolutely. But I think a lot of fan anger stems from the fact that a lot of fans have got unrealistic expectations. Everyone bangs on about standards. The standards are still there. The standards haven't lowered, or they haven't, they've not been changed. It's just, right now we're not in a position as a club with, everything. We're not in a position to hit the standards we were at. Every club, football's cyclical. Every club goes through a difficult spell, and yet, obviously it's shit when you're in that spell. But like the sense of entitlement you see from like some sections of the fan base, that there's almost like, oh, we shouldn't have to go through this. Why shouldn't we? What do you expect to be like winning forever? When Pep leaves Man City, they will go down a little bit. Football, someone else will go to the top. That's kind of how it works. Like we have to spend, 2 seasons, or whether it, God forbid, it might be a third season. If you have to spend 3 seasons out of the last 20 years or whatever being a little bit shit, like if you look at it at that perspective from a bit of a trade-off, you think, oh, it's not that bad. But I get it, it's frustrating. I get it, fans want better, they deserve better. You spend a lot of money following the club and whatnot. We spent a lot of money on players and stuff. But I just think, I'll probably include myself at the start of the season, like the expectations, I think, were totally unrealistic. And what were we basing that on? Purely basing that on money spent. Weren't basing it on anything else whatsoever. just basing, we're going to come top four because we spent X amount of money. When actually, if you think about it, why would we come top four with the route we've chosen to go down at the first time of asking? You wouldn't.
I think that you've got to. I understand what you're saying, but I mean, do you know what? There's good sides. There's good points on both sides, and I'm still very much on the side that I want to give the club the summer. And if they don't show me ambition in the summer, I know where they are and I know where I am. Right? It's as simple as that. If we're not bringing in players,
the summer window
that are going to be performing right now, there is no ambition. That's the truth of it. There is no ambition, right? We're basically Spurs with money, if that's the case, right? And we're going to move on to Gallagher in a second because, you know, I'm hearing the contract talks. They don't want to offer him more than 150 grand a week. And, you know, there might be some good reasons for that. But Gallagher's been one of our best players this season. He's certainly Pochettino's favourite player. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But, you know, when I listen to other fans and you know, Charlie, you obviously know, you know, some of the guys that are streaming and stuff like that, Nina as well. You know, I do listen to some of this stuff and it's very valid points that I hear. And it's emotional and it sort of drags you into this position where, right, you can either take it objectively, right, look at the numbers and look at what we would be trying to do if we were trying to be successful. But the other hand is, you know, you've got Bowley, you've got Egbarley, you've got all these guys from the consortium. And essentially what they've done is they've come into English football, right? The top of the food chain in the football world. And what they've done is they've taken a club, they've overpaid, right? Because we weren't worth what they paid for us because of our situation, because of the debt. We managed to get lucky that Roman wrote it off. I think it was 1.5 billion, right? So that would have changed everything from the get-go. So we were lucky in that sense. And what they think they can do, what Bowley thinks he can do, is increase the value of the club, right? There's no doubt about it in my mind. That's what they're looking to do. Similar to what happened with AC Milan, they got taken over by an American consortium years back, and all they did is brought them back to the top, you know, slowly, sustainably. They didn't spend crazy money, and then they just sold it on again, you know. And I think that's ultimately, I think that's what might happen with Chelsea. You know, we've bought a club. We're trying to build up the value by bringing other clubs into it. First, it's Strasbourg. You know, we're going to find other clubs that come into that multi-club model. And, you know, ticket prices in 10 years' time compared to when the consortium first took over are going to be way over. And this is the case wherever they've gone. You know, the Dodgers, the way they've been able to monetize that and create a money building machine is fine. And then we talk about success. I mean, the Dodgers haven't actually had major success. The Dodgers, in terms of baseball, are very similar to, you almost look at, I don't know, a team like, in terms of success over the past 10 years, a team like Man United. You know, they've had some good seasons where they've picked up a few trophies, and they've had some seasons where they've had absolutely crap, right? And what that tells me is, right, you've got a sustainable business model, but you haven't got a sustainable project for the future. You cannot guarantee success with that. And I would argue both sides. I would argue that, yes, they do need more time, which is why I'm willing to wait for the summer because of the route we have taken. But I'd also argue that, you know, these guys are clueless because you have gutted the spine of the board. You took out Marina Granovskaya, you took out Bruce Buck. These are the people that could have shown you the way. And then actually by this point, you could have sacked them already, right? Because you would have understood how things work. But no, you don't want to do that, right? Bowley's going to go and be the director of football. He's going to sign all the players. And then we're going to, you know, rather than competing with the very best, like Man United have come in, Jim Radcliffe, right, we want Newcastle sporting director. We want him. He's the best. We go and steal Paul Stanley from Brighton. You know, we've got Lawrence Stewart as well. And, you know, time will tell if they can produce, because, again, it is a long-term project. You can't judge them over a season. But this does not show you any ambition in the short term. So you're right. We have absolutely we've thrown the short term in the bin. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. If we would have got a Carabao Cup, that would have been fantastic. I would be the first person to be raving about it and talking about how much credit this team and Pochettino should have for winning the Carabao Cup, because we're not ready. We're not ready for it. Who's won trophies in this team? You know, we were speaking before the stream about Sterling. He's the man who's meant to be leading us forward, and he's crap. I actually think that if I was the ownership right now, I would be looking to sell a player like Sterling, which almost contradicts what I've just said, and bring in another young player. Because you know what? If I'm going to develop someone, it's going to be someone who's actually got something to develop. Because I think Sterling's getting worse and worse by the week.
He's not going to get any better. He's hit his. That's it now. Like that's his level. Like he might play a bit better, but in terms of improving as a footballer, he's not going to improve anymore.
Mate, he is absolutely he is crap. You know, sorry to just put a big negative spin on it, but you know, we did try and go out there and sign some superstars, some names, but we just got it so wrong. And
well, that first summer, you know, that summer 22, that first summer when obviously Bowley had to be interim sporting director or whatever. Like, you look back at that now, that business was absolutely shocking, and it's probably set us back a season or two. Koulibaly's been and gone, Aubameyang been and gone. We signed Zakaria on loan, we signed Dennis Zakaria on loan. Sterling's here, it's been shit. Cucurella's not been awful, but that's not been particularly successful. So that window in that first summer, shocking, absolutely horrendous. And at the time, don't get me wrong, I was reasonably happy with it. Like, I think quite a lot of people were. But as time goes on and you look back, like, that window was awful, and I think that has set us back a good season, at least minimum. That recruitment in that summer, because it was shocking. It was absolutely awful. And, you know, we love Tuchel for what he's done, but him being the driving force behind signing Sterling, yeah, I'm sorry, Thomas, that's on you, and that's really shit, and it's fucked us over big time. So cheers for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just weird. And then you're dishing out over 200 grand contracts to all these bums, you know, supposed bums, you know, and then you won't give Gallagher 150 grand a week.
I don't think on the Gallagher thing, though. Mate. Like, I think on the Gallagher thing, we need to make sure that we're not falling for these briefings. This is exactly the same thing that we went down with the Mason Mount path. Where can someone please find me where Gallagher's demanded 150 grand? He hasn't. Like, it's briefings coming out from the club trying to paint themselves in a good light, saying that it's not us, it's him. Where has he once demanded that money? He hasn't. So, like, you know, we're getting to this point again where, you know, like with Mount, we're making out the players to be the bad guys. And look, we're offering this, but their demands are ridiculous, and we can't match that. We're looking to do X, Y, Z or whatever with the wage bill and stuff. It's nonsense. Gallagher's not demanded 150 grand once. So yeah, I mean, we've been down this road before. Like, you know, if people want to believe that players are making unrealistic demands, then that's on them. But come on, we know what's going on here. We've been down this road before.
Hey, we dished out Cucurella's on over 9 million a year. Like, Fofana, like, these guys are on a lot of money, man. And this was the owners. They were handing it out. You know, you've still got, who's that defender? The French defender, Sarr.
Malang Sarr. Yeah. He's on 100 grand a week.
150 grand a week or something like that. I've never even seen the guy play in the past 2 years. I haven't even seen the guy play. So, you know, I don't think you should be punishing Gallagher for that. But by the way, actually, I mean, going back to Gallagher, I will just say that I actually don't really care if we get rid of him. To be quite honest with you, I think that opens up a lot of doors. I think that if Gallagher goes, you open up the door for Chukwuemeka, who I think starts ahead of Gallagher in the 10 anyway. I think he's our second best player alongside Cole Palmer. I've said that a few times. I love Chukwuemeka. Very underappreciated, not talked about enough. He has all the qualities to be the shining star of this team, and, you know, the link up between him and Palmer already just in the last game. I mean, that's just a little snippet of what we're going to see hopefully in the future.
I would agree.
I think you take Gallagher out of that spot, Chukwuemeka takes the 10, Mudryk plays better in the 10. You got Sterling, who's on the wing right now. I think he needs to go get another young player in that can actually do a job there.
You're joking.
Yeah.
Do you know what? On the Gallagher thing though, like I think if we're going to be, I don't say, if we're going to be a serious team and get back to competing at the top level, as good as Conor Gallagher is, you can't be having Conor Gallagher as your first choice number 10. You can't be in a situation where Gallagher's playing in that position ahead of an Nkunku, ahead of a Mudryk, ahead of a Chukwuemeka, ahead of any of these guys. Look, Gallagher for me, I'm happy for him to stay. I'd like him to stay as a squad player. Very, very useful. You need players that understand and get what it means to play for the club. You need players that have got the club's DNA in them, and he's certainly one of those. But I think if we're going to be a legit team going forwards, you can't have Conor Gallagher as your first choice number 10 week in, week out. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, Nina, what do you think about it all?
Yeah, I agree with you, both your points. And I think, we're not going to take away from Gallagher's game. He's been very good. And one thing he has been is durable and he's been consistent. And those are two things that Chelsea have been scarce in recent times. So you have to appreciate those qualities where you have them. However, with the money we've spent, with the direction that we're supposedly going in, I don't think it's right to build around someone like Gallagher. And we've spoken about that many times. He's had his moment now. He's been given it by Pochettino because he was nothing than a squad player at best last season, and again, not going to take away from his game, but the players that we do have, you kind of have to accommodate for Gallagher if you wish to start him every single game, and it means that you switch players around him. You might play a certain player out of position, or you might hinder someone like Carney, like Mudryk, like Nkunku from developing their game. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that we signed here to stay for a long time. They're the ones that we're supposed to get and bring the best out of them. But how do we do that if Gallagher's got his place locked up on the pitch, and they don't really have the freedom to try other things? Yeah, I agree with both your points.
Yeah, I mean, and then we'll just move on before we wrap up. I mean, the whole injury situation, we've got a couple of players. I think we've got Ugachukwu, and Nkunku, Lavia.
Let me just get the scroll out.
Colwell.
James and Fofana. So we've only got 6 at the moment, which is
that's quite good.
Pretty good
for
us,
pretty good.
Considering.
Let me just put this question out for you guys. This just popped into my head. If Reece James comes back, do you drop Gusto?
I think if we're being honest, like Reece James at full fitness and playing his best is the best right back in the world, and he plays. It's as simple as that. I don't think we should be framing it in a way where, is it James or Gusto? It's both of them. The fact that we've got that, that quality and depth now means that actually, do you know what? We don't need to play Reece every week. If it's too taxing on his body to play every week, then we've got another option. If you want to play a back three, you can play them both. You can play Reece as a right centre back. You can play Gusto as a right back. Like, to have those two options there is great. It's an interesting decision to make. I think it's still obviously going to be Reece James. But now when there was a clear gap at the start of the season, I don't think there's anywhere near as big a gap right now. And to be perfectly honest, I'm happy with either. But I don't think we should be looking at it as it's one or the other. It's both.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean, but with Gusto and how he has stepped up in Reece James's absence, not just once, but twice, let's remember, he has been and has lived up to everything we have needed him to do. And I keep saying this, I've had my questions about recruitment, but bringing in Malag Gusto, guys, imagine where we would be if we didn't have someone like Malag Gusto right now. We talk about not having fullbacks all season, and there's been games where Gusto's also been unavailable maybe once or twice somewhere down the line, but on the most part he's been there. He's been such a key part of build-up play. He's heavily involved in defending as he is offensively, and we know that that's something that we've praised Reece James for being, because he's been ticking all the boxes, and that's why we've hailed him above Trent as well, for that quality that he can do both very well. But Gusto shouldn't be dropped instantly. I guess it's a case of maybe finding a place for both of them, but it would be so unfair And that's a big statement to make, to drop someone like Gusto, who's been exceptional and has been building his game, developing, and that's exactly why we brought him in. He's a top player and he needs a place in the squad.
I have to agree with you, Nina. Guys, let us know. Who do you think is the best signing that we've made? Is it Cole Palmer, Malag Gusto, or are you like me? Do you believe that Chukwuemeka, even though he's been injured, actually has a higher ceiling than all of them?
I can actually back that you like him, Alex, because you've been banging on about him all season. Every time I talk about preseason, you're like, and Carney.
I love Chucky, man.
I'll tell you what, though, I think Nicholas Jackson will end up being one of our best signings as well.
Yes, I agree. Nicholas Jackson will certainly be in the conversation, but a little bit different as a striker. You just do G&A, don't you? And then people will start talking, even if you're crap, right? Nobody really cares as long as you're putting the ball in the back of the net. Listen, guys, if you have been watching for the whole episode, we appreciate it. If you agree or disagree with anything myself, Charlie, or Nina has said, let us know in the comments. It's always interesting to hear your thoughts and get a little debate going down there. I might even join in myself. Listen, always a pleasure, Nina. Thanks for coming on. Charlie, same to you, mate. Guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will see you very, very soon.